The year was 2147. Earth had changed a lot since the 21st century. Most of the wars were gone. People no longer fought over land or oil. They had bigger problems, like surviving in space. Earth was now part of something called EarthNet, a single, global government that managed life on Earth and the colonies on Mars and some moons of Jupiter. It wasn't perfect, but it worked better than before. Most people lived normal lives. They went to work, raised kids, watched old movies, and tried not to think too much about what lay beyond the stars. But some did think about it. Lena Carter was one of them. She was 32 years old. She worked at the Deep Signal Research Station on Ganymede, one of Jupiter's icy moons. Her job was to listen, to scan the sky for signals that didn't belong. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't an astronaut. She was just a linguist who loved puzzles and patterns. She spoke 6 languages and could read 3 ancient ones. But her real talent was this: she understood how messages worked, even when they weren't made by humans. On a quiet Tuesday morning, the station picked up something strange. It came from the edge of the solar system, near where Neptune used to orbit before it got moved by gravity tugs in the early 2100s. The signal didn't come through normal radio waves. It didn't show up on radar. It hit the sensors like a pulse, silent, fast, and deep. At first, everyone thought it was a glitch. Then it happened again, and again. Each time, the same pattern: a short burst, followed by silence, then a second burst, with a slightly different rhythm. Not random, not noise. A message, but not one anyone could understand. Lena sat alone in the listening room staring at the screen. The waveform looked like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, and cold. She recorded it, played it back, slowed it down, sped it up, turned it into sound. It sounded like wind blowing through bones. She sent the data to EarthNet headquarters. Within hours, every signal expert in the solar system was looking at it. No one knew what it meant. Until Lena noticed something. The pulses weren't just repeating. They were changing. Slight shifts in frequency, tiny variations in timing. Like someone was trying to speak but couldn't find the right voice. She started writing notes, mapping the changes, comparing them to known alien dialects, old human languages, even dolphin calls. Nothing matched. Then she tried something new. Instead of treating it like language, she treated it like emotion, joy, fear, urgency, sadness. Suddenly, the pattern made sense. It's not saying hello, she whispered to herself. It's saying help. She wrote it out. They are coming. 3 words. No grammar, no greeting, just a warning. She showed her findings to the others. Some laughed. Some said she was reading too much into it. But Daniel Reyes believed her. Daniel was a systems engineer. He used to work on AI defense programs before he quit the military. Now he helped build the tech that protected EarthNet from cyber threats and alien scans. He looked at the message and said only one thing: then we better be ready. They sent the message to Earth, to the Council, to the world. People panicked. Some said it was a hoax. Others thought it was a test from the Zalari, the powerful aliens who sometimes watched Earth from afar. A few thought it was a sign of war, but most people didn't know what to think. All they knew was someone or something was sending a message from the edge of the solar system, and the message was clear. Something was coming. Back on Earth, the Council held an emergency meeting. Leaders from all over the planet joined via hologram. The United Americas, the Pan-Euro Alliance, the Pacific Union, and the African Coalition, all were there. They debated for hours. Should they send a ship? Should they hide? Should they answer? In the end, they decided on the simplest plan. Send a probe, a small, fast drone equipped with sensors, cameras, and a basic AI. It would fly toward the source of the signal and send back everything it saw. The mission was called Echo 1. It launched 2 weeks later. Lena and Daniel watched from Ganymede as the tiny craft left orbit and headed into the dark. It took 11 days to reach the signal's origin point. What it found shocked them all. There, was no ship, no debris, no wreckage, just silence. And then, another pulse. This time, stronger, closer, and this time it wasn't just heard, it was felt. Across the solar system, people began reporting strange things, dreams of cold places, whispers in their minds, feelings of fear they couldn't explain. Even animals acted strangely. Birds stopped singing. Dogs barked at the sky. Fish swam in tight circles. Something was here, or almost here. Back at the research station, Lena stared at the new data. The signal had changed again. Now it said, "Help us," not, "They are coming" anymore. Now it was a plea. Daniel walked in, his face pale. "They're not asking us to run," he said quietly. "They want us to fight." Lena looked at him. "But we don't even know who they are." Daniel didn't answer, because he didn't know either. But he knew one thing for sure. Humanity was no longer alone, and whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly. After the signal was received and understood, EarthNet moved fast. The Council sent out a call to every scientist, linguist, soldier, and thinker they could find. They wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Lena Carter stayed on Ganymede. She was the only one who truly understood the message. Daniel Reyes returned to Earth to work with the defense teams. He didn't like leaving Lena alone, but she insisted. "I need to keep listening," she said. "Something's still out there." And she was right. A week after Echo 1 sent its final data, a new object appeared near Neptune. This time, it wasn't just a signal. It was a ship. Big, sleek, shining like polished stone. It didn't attack. It didn't move fast. It just waited. EarthNet scrambled to respond. They sent drones, then scouts, then warships. But none got close. The alien ship ignored all contact attempts until it finally spoke. Not with sound, but with thought. Across Earth, people felt it. A pressure behind the eyes. A whisper that wasn't spoken. "We come not as enemies." The message was simple, but it scared everyone, because it came from inside their heads. The Council debated again. Should they send people? Should they stay quiet? In the end, they chose to go. They picked a small team. No soldiers at first, just diplomats, scientists, and one security officer. That officer was Commander Nick Hale. He was 52 years old, a former peacekeeper. He had served in Africa during the water wars, in Asia when the seawalls broke. He knew what fear looked like, and he knew how to lead people through it. He wasn't excited about this mission. He didn't trust aliens. He'd read too many reports about vanished ships and dead colonies, but he went anyway, because someone had to. The human delegation traveled aboard a diplomatic shuttle called Liberty. It was slow, unarmed, and built for talks, not fights. They reached the alien ship in 3 days. Up close, it was even more impressive. Its surface shimmered like glass, but changed color with the light. Symbols moved across it like writing made of fire. When the hatch opened, no one came out. Instead, a voice, again not spoken, said, "Enter and speak." Inside, the air was warm. The walls glowed softly. There were no seats, no screens, just smooth floors and floating lights. Then the aliens arrived. They were tall, thin, with skin like silver and eyes that never blinked. Their voices still came inside the head. They called themselves the Zilari. They did not smile. They did not shake hands. They simply said, "You have heard the warning." Lena's message had reached them. The Zilari explained what they knew. They had been tracking the same signal for centuries. It always came before something vanished. Not just ships, whole planets, entire worlds gone silent. They believed the signal was a weapon, or a beacon, or both, and now it had come to Earth. The Zilari weren't here to warn humans, they were here to ask for help. Nick couldn't believe it. "You're asking us?" he asked, looking at the silver-skinned beings. "We're barely off our own moon. You've got ships that can fly between stars. One of the Zalari turned its head slowly. You hear what we cannot? That was true. Only humans had understood the message. Only humans had felt it. Daniel had warned them this might be the case. Human minds were different, more flexible. Maybe that made them better at decoding things other species couldn't. But why would the Zalari need help from a species they considered weak? Lena asked that question. The answer chilled her. Because it is growing stronger. The hollow voice. What? The Zalari called it was spreading. It had already destroyed dozens of systems. Their weapons did nothing. Their shields failed. Their minds were too rigid. But humans listened differently. So the Zalari offered something big, a seat at the Galactic Council. Not because they liked humans, but because they needed them. Back on Earth, the news caused chaos. Some leaders saw it as a chance, others as a trap. Some wanted to say yes, others wanted to shut the door. Nick argued for caution. We don't know what we're getting into, he told the council in a live feed. These beings are ancient, powerful, and scared. That means whatever's coming, it's worse than anything we've faced. Lena agreed. This isn't just diplomacy, she said. This is survival. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, if we don't go now, we may never get another chance. The vote was close. But in the end, EarthNet accepted the offer. Humanity would sit at the Galactic Council, not as equals. Not yet. But as a species that had done something no one else could. They had listened, and they had understood. The journey to the Galactic Council was long. The Zalari ship moved faster than any human craft, jumping through space like a stone skipping across water. For days, Lena, Daniel, and Nick floated in silence, watching stars blur into streaks outside the windows. They weren't alone. Other ships joined them, some sleek and sharp like blades, others bulky and slow, filled with beings from worlds humans had never heard of. All were heading to the same place, a station orbiting a dying sun. It was called Virex Prime. Once, it had been a battlefield. Now it was a meeting hall for species that feared the same enemy. Inside the station, the air smelled old. Not dirty, but used. Like it had been recycled too many times. The walls were made of metal and stone, built by hands long gone. The Galactic Council wasn't what Lena expected. There were no speeches, no flags, just rows of seats around a glowing table. Each seat held a different kind of being. Some looked almost human. Others didn't look like life at all, just shapes that moved and spoke without mouths. Nick stayed close to his team. I don't like this, he muttered. Feels like we're walking into someone else's war. Daniel nodded. We already are. Lena watched as the Zalari stepped forward and began to speak. Not with their minds this time, but with symbols that lit up in the air. They told the story of the hollow voice, of how it had come before, of how it had taken whole systems without a sound, and then they said something new. We did not always fight alone. A second group stood up. Their skin was dark and cracked like dried earth. Their voices rumbled like thunder. They were the Virex, the Zalari's oldest enemies. For centuries, the two species had fought. They destroyed moons, poisoned oceans, and turned planets into graveyards. But now they stood side by side, because the hollow voice had changed everything. One of the Virex leaders stepped forward. Its voice came like a deep wind. Long ago, we found a world that did not answer. The room grew still. It was strong, rich with life, but when the signal came, it vanished. A picture appeared above the table, a planet spinning slowly in space. Green, blue, alive. Then darkness. Silence. Only one word followed. Gone. Lena felt her stomach twist. She asked, Did you ever find out what happened? The Virex leader turned its head toward her. We tried. Another image showed up. This time it was broken ruins floating in space. Ships torn apart. Cities burned down to ash, and in the middle of it all a single structure remained. Tall, black, silent. We sent scientists. then soldiers, then priests. The next image was short, a flash of light, screams without sound, then nothing. No more data, no more survivors. Daniel whispered, "They didn't just lose a planet, they lost everyone who went looking for answers." Nick crossed his arms. "So why are you telling us this now?" The Zalari answered. "Because you hear differently." Lena frowned. "You mean the signal?" "Yes. It speaks in thought, in fear, in memory." She felt cold. "Then it's not just a weapon," she said. "It's something else." Daniel looked at the screen, again, at the black tower standing alone in space. "What if," he said slowly, "the signal isn't sending a message?" He turned to the aliens. "What if it's calling something?" The room went quiet. Even the machines seemed to pause. Nick broke the silence. "If that's true, then we're not fighting a war." He looked at Lena. "We're trying to stop something waking up." The Zalari and the Virex exchanged glances. Then one of them said, "There is one place where the past still lives. A ruin. A record. A warning. If you wish to understand, you must." "Go there," Lena swallowed hard. "Where?" The answer came like a whisper inside her head. "To the last world that listened." The journey to the lost world took time. The Zalari ship moved fast, but this place was far, hidden behind a cloud of dark matter that blocked most scans and signals. It was called Korath 9. Once, it had been home to a species known as the Korath. They were gone now, wiped out like so many others, but their last message still echoed through space. As the ship got closer, Lena stared out the window. Below them, the planet looked wrong. Not just dead, but empty. Like something had taken more than life. It had taken meaning. Daniel stood beside her. "This place," he said quietly, "feels like a thought that never ended." Nick checked his gear. He didn't like this mission. No one did. But someone had to go down. They landed near what used to be a city. Now all that remained were broken towers leaning like old bones. The air was thin, cold, and dry. Every step kicked up dust that hadn't moved in centuries. Inside the ruins, they found what the Zalari had promised, a data vault. It wasn't guarded. It wasn't locked. It just waited. Lena stepped forward. She placed her hand on the wall. Symbols lit up in response, glowing blue like fireflies. A voice, not from a speaker, not from a machine, spoke inside her head. "We tried to warn you," she gasped. Daniel turned to her. "What happened?" "I heard something," she whispered, like a memory. Nick frowned. "You sure it's safe?" "We don't have a choice," Daniel said. They entered the vault. Inside, there were no books, no screens, just floating lights, like thoughts trapped in glass. One of them reached for Lena. She didn't pull away. The light touched her forehead, and then she remembered, not her own memories, but theirs. The Korath had been smart, strong. They had built cities in the stars. They had fought wars and won peace, but when the signal came, they listened. Too closely. They thought it was a gift, a way to share knowledge, to speak without speaking, to understand without being understood. But it changed them. Their minds opened, too wide. They became part of the signal, and then they vanished. Lena fell to her knees. Daniel caught her. "Lena," he shouted. "Talk to me." Her eyes were open, but she didn't blink. Then she spoke. Not in English. Not in any language they knew. But Daniel understood. Somehow he knew what she meant. They gave it form in their minds. They invited it in. Nick pulled her back. "What the hell was that?" he asked. Lena blinked, shook her head. "I saw it," she said. "The hollow voice isn't just a thing. It's a thought, a presence. It spreads by being understood." Daniel felt a chill. "You mean," he said slowly, "if you get the message, you become part of it?" Lena nodded. That's why the Zilari can't hear it clearly. Their minds are too rigid, too structured. But humans, she looked at Daniel. Our brains work differently. We dream, we imagine, we make connections between things that don't seem related. Nick looked scared. So you're saying if we keep listening, we might lose ourselves? Lena didn't answer right away. Then she said, maybe. Or maybe we can use it. Daniel frowned. Use it how? To fight back. She pointed at the floating lights. The Korath tried to stop it. They left this behind. A record. A warning. Maybe even a weapon. Daniel walked over. He reached out carefully. One of the lights hovered near him. It didn't touch him. Instead, it changed. Its color shifted. Its shape twisted. Then it spoke. Not in words, but in a pattern. A frequency. Daniel recognized it. It's the same as the signal, he said. But different. Lena stepped closer. What if, she said slowly, this isn't just a warning? What if it's a way to shut the hollow voice down? Nick looked between them. You're telling me this whole time we've been afraid of something we might be able to turn off? Lena nodded. But only if we understand it the right way. Daniel looked at the light again. And only if we don't let it understand us first. They gathered what they could from the vault. Data, patterns, recordings, all of it went into a secure drive. As they left the ruins, Lena looked back. Something was still watching. Not with eyes. With thought. Back on Earth, things were not calm. The data from Korath 9 had arrived. Scientists, linguists, and military leaders all wanted to see it. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a trap. But everyone agreed on one thing. It changed everything. Lena. Carter sat in a small room at the EarthNet science base near Denver. The walls were white. The lights were cold. A single chair faced a screen that never turned off. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing. The ruins of Korath 9, the floating lights, and voices that didn't belong to anyone. Daniel Reyes stood nearby watching her. You need rest, he said. I can't, Lena replied. Not yet. She pointed at the screen. Lines of symbols filled it. Some matched the hollow voice signal. Others were new. We're close, she whispered. I know we are. Daniel rubbed his face. He was tired too. But he also knew something else. Lena wasn't the same since Korath 9. She still acted like herself, still talked fast, still made jokes. But sometimes, for a second, she would pause, like she was listening to something far away. He asked her, once. She just smiled and said, It's always there, just quieter now. Nick Hale came into the room with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Daniel, kept the other. Commander wants to talk, Nick said, looking at Lena. They want you in front of the council tomorrow. Lena didn't look surprised. They want answers, she said, and they want them fast. They also want control, Nick added. You think they'll let you keep working if they don't like what you find? Lena looked down at her. Notes. I'm not doing this for them, she said. I'm doing it for us. Daniel sipped his coffee. What do you have so far? He asked. Lena tapped the screen. A new pattern appeared. This is the key, she said. The Korath tried to fight back. They created a counter-signal, something that could disrupt the hollow voice. Daniel leaned closer. You mean shut it down? Not completely, Lena said. But weaken it. Make it stop spreading. Nick frowned. How? Lena hesitated. We use ourselves, she said. Or more accurately, our minds. Daniel's eyes widened. You're saying we can broadcast thoughts, like the hollow voice does? Lena nodded. That's how the Korath lost themselves. They opened their minds too wide. But what if we could do it differently? Controlled, focused, not to listen, but to speak back. Silence filled the room. Then Nick said, That sounds dangerous. It is, Lena admitted. But it might be the only way. Daniel thought for a moment. If we do this, he said slowly, we might become part of it. We might lose who we are. Lena looked at him. Or we might save everyone. There was a knock at the door. A woman entered. She wore a black uniform with EarthNet insignia. Her voice was calm but firm. Dr. Carter, she said. Time to go. Lena stood up. She took one last look at the screen. Then she followed the officer out. At the council hall, Lena faced the most powerful people on Earth. Lights shone on her. Cameras recorded every word. One of the council members, an older man named Senator Briggs, leaned forward. Tell us, Dr. Carter, he said. What did you bring back from Korath 9? Lena took a deep breath. A way to fight back. Murmurs spread across the room. Briggs raised a hand. Silence returned. And, how do we use it? Lena looked around. We don't need weapons, she said. We need minds. She explained the plan. How the human brain could resist the hollow voice. How they could use thought itself as a weapon. How they could send a message that would push the enemy away. Some listened carefully, others looked scared. Senator Briggs frowned. You're telling us this requires volunteers? People who will risk losing themselves? Yes, Lena said, but it's the only chance we have. Briggs studied her for a long time. Then he said, You understand what you're asking? Lena met his eyes. I do. He nodded slowly. Then we begin. The hollow voice arrived at the edge of the solar system like a cold wind. No ships, no weapons, just silence. And then, a signal. It was not sent through radio waves or satellites. It came directly into people's minds. At first it felt like a dream. A whisper behind the eyes. A soft voice that said, Listen to me. Most people ignored it, but some didn't. In small towns and big cities, on Mars colonies and deep space stations, people began to change. They stopped talking, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. They just sat and listened. Then they vanished, not in flames, not in smoke, just gone. Entire families disappeared overnight. A whole school in New Lagos blinked out. Teachers, students, even the janitor. There was no body, no sign, only silence. EarthNet declared emergency status across all human space. Martial law was put in place. People were told to stay inside, to avoid listening devices, to turn off their neural links. But it wasn't enough. The hollow voice did not attack with bombs. It attacked with thought, and it was getting stronger. Back at the EarthNet science base, Lena, Daniel, and Nick worked non-stop. The counter signal was ready. They had tested it in labs, in simulations, even on small groups of volunteers who had trained their minds to resist the hollow voice. It worked, but only if it could be broadcast across the entire solar system. Daniel stood in front of a large screen showing maps of Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. We need satellites, he said. Dozens of them, all broadcasting the counter frequency at once. Nick looked at him. You're saying we have to launch a network of transmitters across the solar system? In days? Daniel nodded. It's the only way to protect everyone. Lena stared at the data. I can help, she said quietly. I can guide the signal, make sure it reaches the right places. Nick frowned. You mean you'll stay connected to it? Like before? She nodded. He shook his head. No way. Last time you almost lost yourself. I know, she said, but I understand it now better than anyone. Daniel stepped between them. We don't have time to argue, he said. If we don't act now, more people will vanish. Nick sighed. Fine, he said. We do it. They called the mission Echo Shield. Its goal: build and launch a ring of satellites around Earth, Mars, and the main colonies. Each satellite would carry the counter signal. Together they would form a protective field, blocking the hollow voice from reaching human minds. The plan was simple. The work was not. Daniel led the tech team. They repurposed old weather satellites, military drones, and research probes. Every one was modified to carry the new signal. Lena worked on fine-tuning the frequency. She spent hours connected to the core system, adjusting the tone, the rhythm, the depth. Sometimes she heard the hollow voice again. But now, she knew how to push. Nick took charge of security. As panic spread, riots broke out in major cities. Some governments refused to cooperate. Others tried to take control of the project for themselves. Nick made sure nothing got in the way. He gathered a small team, scientists, pilots, engineers, and ex-soldiers. They became the Echo Shield crew. Their job, get the satellites into orbit, fast. The E-Tower first launch happened from a hidden base in Antarctica. The sky was dark. The air was cold. A small shuttle lifted off, carrying the first satellite into orbit. It was named Echo 1, a nod to the first probe ever sent to investigate the hollow voice. It reached orbit without problems. Then came Echo 2, launched from Mars. Then Echo 3, from Europa Station. One by one, the satellites went up, but so did the attacks. More people vanished. Some members of the crew began hearing voices. One engineer on Luna tried to shut down a satellite, claiming it was calling. Something worse. They had to lock him away. Daniel started having dreams, not normal ones filled with black towers and silent cities. He woke up sweating. Lena noticed. "You're hearing it too," she said. He nodded. "I think it knows what we're doing." She looked at the screen. "Then we better finish fast." By the time the 7th satellite went online, half the solar system was under protection, but the hollow voice was adapting. It changed its tone, its rhythm. It tried to slip past the countersignal like water through cracks. Lena adjusted the code. Daniel boosted the power. Nick ordered more launches. They worked day and night, but they knew the real test was still coming. The hollow voice was not just at the edge of the system anymore. It was here, inside the EarthNet network, inside people's heads, and soon, it would come for them directly. The last satellite was ready. It sat inside a launch bay on Luna, waiting to be sent into orbit. It was bigger than the others, stronger. Its signal would complete the Echo Shield, wrapping Earth, Mars, and the colonies in a protective ring of thought. But time was running out. People were vanishing faster now, not just a few here and there. Whole towns. Ships disappeared mid-flight. A space station near Saturn went silent in under an hour. The hollow voice was no longer at the edge of the system. It was inside it. Inside minds. Inside homes. Inside dreams. Lena sat alone in the control room, staring at the screen. Her fingers moved slowly over the keyboard as she made final adjustments to the signal. She could feel the hollow voice pressing against her thoughts like a cold wind behind her eyes. It was trying to reach her. She let it. Daniel walked in and saw her face. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't blink. "I'm fine," she said. "I'm just listening." He frowned. "That's what worries me." She turned to him. "It's changing," she said. "It's not just spreading anymore. It's learning." Daniel sat down beside her. "We're almost done," he said. "Once we launch the final satellite, we can activate the full shield." Lena nodded. "But I don't think it will stop," she said quietly. "Not completely." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" She tapped the screen. The data showed something strange, something new. "The hollow voice isn't just broadcasting," she said. "It's responding, like it knows what we're doing." Daniel felt a chill. "So what do we do?" Lena looked at him. "We send it something it doesn't expect." Nick stood outside the launch pad on Luna, watching the final satellite get loaded onto the shuttle. Beside him, a pilot named Kate checked the systems one last time. "Everything's green," she said. "We're good to go." Nick nodded. "Good. We need this to work." Kate looked at him. "You sure about this? Once that thing goes live, there's no turning back." Nick crossed his arms. We passed the point of no return a long time ago. Inside the control center, Lena gave the final command, launch. The shuttle lifted off, rising into the black sky above Luna. The engines roared in silence. There was no air to carry sound, but everyone watched. On Earth, on Mars, on every colony. They all knew what was happening. This was the last hope. Back on Earth, panic spread. Riots broke out in major cities. People who had been hearing the voice for days started walking toward the sky, as if expecting something to come down. Some jumped from high places, claiming they had seen the truth. Daniel worked nonstop, feeding data to Lena through a secure link. We're getting interference, he told her. Something's trying to block the signal. Lena frowned. The hollow voice is fighting back. Daniel looked worried. What if it wins? Lena stared at the screen. Then we all vanish. She took a deep breath. I have to go deeper. Daniel's eyes widened. No way. Last time you almost lost yourself. I didn't lose myself, she said. I found something. She looked at him. I think I can talk to it. Daniel shook his head. That's how people disappear. She smiled slightly. Maybe. Or maybe it's how we win. Without waiting for permission, she connected to the core system. Her body stiffened, her breathing slowed, and then she was gone. For a moment, nothing. Then Daniel saw the signal change. The counter frequency grew stronger, clearer, across the solar system. People stopped vanishing. The satellites held. The hollow voice paused. And then it answered, not with words, with thought. A single line appeared on the screen. Why do you resist? Lena's voice came through the speakers, calm and clear. Because we are more than what you take. Another pause. Then another line. You cannot stop us, Lena replied. Maybe not, but we can make you afraid. The signal shifted again. The hollow voice tried to push back, but Lena pushed harder. She rewrote the pattern, changed the code, used the Korith data, turned the signal into a weapon. Daniel watched as the screen filled, with lines of symbols, some old, some new. The frequency spiked. Across the solar system, the echo shield flared to life, and for the first time, the hollow voice retreated. The hollow voice pulled back, not all at once, not like a ship retreating from battle, more like a tide, slowly leaving the shore, leaving behind silence instead of death. Across the solar system, people who had been lost to the signal blinked, their eyes open again. They didn't remember where they had gone, only that they were back. On Earth, the skies cleared. On Mars, the silence ended. On Luna, Daniel stared at the screen, watching the final data stream in. The echo shield was working, but Lena was still connected. Her body sat in the chair, eyes closed, fingers resting on the keyboard. Her breathing was slow. Her face was calm. She wasn't just sending the signal anymore. She was inside it. Daniel leaned close. Lena, he whispered. Can you hear me? There was no answer. But the screen changed. Words appeared. I am still here. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at Nick, who stood near the door, arms crossed, face tight with worry. She's not gone, Daniel said. She's part of it. Nick walked over. What do you mean? Daniel pointed at the screen. She's guiding it, keeping it stable. Nick shook his head. That doesn't sound safe. Daniel looked at Lena again. No, he said, but it might be the only way to keep it away. Back on Earth, the world began to rebuild. Governments sent out messages. People gathered in cities and towns. Some cried, some prayed, others simply held each other. For the first time in weeks, no one vanished. No more whispers in the night. No more silent places. Just life. EarthNet called for a global meeting. Leaders from every nation came together. Even those who had doubted the threat now saw the truth. Humanity had faced something beyond war, beyond weapons, and survived. A message was sent to the Zilari and the Virex. It said only one thing: we answered when you could not. The reply came hours later. You have done what none before you could. The galaxy owes you its silence. Nick read the message and laughed bitterly. They're thanking us by saying we saved their quiet. Daniel smiled. At least they're thanking us? In space, the echo shield continued to pulse. Satellites floated in orbit, broadcasting the counter-signal across the stars. And somewhere inside that signal, Lena remained. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She did not speak with her mouth, but she was listening, always listening. Sometimes Daniel would connect to the core system and talk to her. "How are you?" he would ask, and the screen would light up with her reply. "I feel the dark, but I am not afraid." He asked once if she wanted to come back. She didn't answer right away. Then, "I am still needed." That was enough, because even though she was no longer walking on Earth, she was still protecting it from the stars, from the silence, from the hollow voice. Weeks passed, then months. The world slowly returned to normal. People went back to work. Children went back to school. Ships flew between planets again, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer seen as weak, no longer ignored. The Zilari visited Earth again, not to ask for help this time, but to offer something new. A place among the stars, not as equals, yet, but as something more than they had been before. Daniel stood at the edge of a new spaceport, looking up at the sky. Nick joined him. "You think she can hear us?" Nick asked. Daniel nodded. "I know she can." Nick looked at the stars. "We owe her everything." Daniel smiled. "She wouldn't say that. She'd say we were just doing what anyone should." Nick sighed. "Still, I miss her." Daniel looked up. "She's still here," he said, "just listening."